Okay. Okay, can we, all right, I'd like to get started again, and I hope you found the discussion kind of valuable. I mean, to me, it's really interesting, to think about these issues. I mean, I don't. To me, they're very interesting. So, I'd like to actually get back to this discussion about the impact of the first love relationship. Oh wait, okay. Okay, we're going. Yeah. Okay. The impact of the first love. Yeah, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this from the perspective of brain research. Actually, there's a couples therapist named Doug Weiss from Denver, Colorado, and he's counseled probably thousands of married couples who are having difficulties in their marital relationship. And he found that a lot of these couples have, usually the husband had been watching pornography, and so he began to do more research about the impact of, it's actually brain conditioning, and this is from Dr. Weiss. Consistent viewing of anything or anyone during a sexual experience creates a sexual desire for that object or person. So, particularly for men, whatever they're looking at when they are getting sexually aroused, it's being imprinted on the pleasure center of the brain. I believe he calls it the preoptic neuron. It's in this part of the brain. And I'll talk about pornography a little bit later. But the main point I want to make is that early sexual experiences are imprinted on the brain. So, if you're waiting until marriage to have your first sexual experience, then who is your brain imprinting on? Yeah, on the person you just got married to. Okay? That's actually a really good thing, actually, right? Because that becomes your definition of what is attractive to you, right? So, and there was in terms of the meaning of the sexual experience, you associate sexual intimacy. Here, men like to decide things in advance. Actually, one of my sons, he tells me this all the time. If I ask him to do something at the last minute, he gets really upset with me. And, sometimes I cannot avoid it, that things come up and I need his help to do something. But for a lot of men, they want to decide. They don't want to, that's why if a woman has sex with a man and she's not married to him, and then she tells him, I'm pregnant, there are a lot of men, they agreed to have sex, but they did not agree to be a father. I know that sounds stupid because you have to be pretty dumb. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, ladies, but men can be dumb in that way. They signed on to get in bed with you and do a lot of things, but in their mind, they were not signing up to be a father. Okay? I'm just being honest. They did not make that connection. Well, actually, marriage is a way by which men make that connection much more clearly. Right. So the early sexual experience is imprinted on the brain. So if you do wait till marriage, that's a really good thing. And some students say, well, I want to practice before because I don't want to start my marital relationship and not know what to do. So I sometimes ask the young people, well, okay, let's have a discussion about this point. Let's say on a scale, let's say you both wait. And let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is kind of pathetic and 10 is incredible, let's say your first experience together is like a 2 or 3. Because it takes time to learn how to, please each other, and there are different, there are things to learn. But so what are you going to do? Let's say that your first time together as a married couple, things didn't go quite the way that you're expecting. So what are you going to do in that case? You got a big problem, right? What's that, David? Oh, you're going to practice, right? Yeah, practice makes perfect, right? That's true. I spoke to this one youth group one time, and this young man, he said, yeah, I'm waiting, but after we get married, we're going to practice like every hour. He was ready. So that's right, you'll practice. And probably within a few weeks, a few months, a few years, a few decades, you can get pretty good at it, right? And you really learn how to please each other. And the great thing is, because of this idea of imprinting, then your wife or your husband, you may not have exactly the same body that you used to have when you were younger, but you still feel that kind of deep connection for each other. And your wife becomes like incredibly beautiful to you at whatever age you're at. Okay? Now, let's flip it around here. What happens if you don't wait until marriage and you just have sex in the back seat of a car, or you're just someplace, and it's with somebody that you don't really know that well, and you really don't have a deep relationship with this person? What is likely to happen in that situation? I mean, think about this. I think guys and girls do approach sex differently. I mean, let's be honest, okay? I think for many young men, they can have sex with a girl. It does not necessarily mean that he's committed to her. And in contrast, I think for a lot of girls, especially in the very beginning, the girl is thinking, this person cares about me, he loves me, and immediately after they have sexual intercourse, there's a question that rises in the brain of especially the girl, and sometimes the guy too. What does this mean, right? She's asking, what does this mean? Like, are we a couple? These kinds of questions, right? And anyway, and of course, in most cases, it means nothing. The guy says, "Oh, okay, that was great," and he never calls back. He doesn't want to see her again. Happens all the time, right? So, a young girl who has these type of like short hookups, they call them hookups, right? What does she learn about the meaning of sex? What she learns is that sex means nothing. That's what she's learning. She's actually learning to almost despise sex. Or it's something that I can use. I can use this to manipulate guys. She can become kind of manipulative too. It's not just the guys, right? It's actually both. You actually have guys and girls just using each other. So I agree that this idea of first love is actually a very important concept. We need to really talk to young people. What do you want your first love to be? If you have uncommitted sex, there's a big chance that you're going to actually hurt yourself, hurt another person, and you're even going to distort your view of what sex is. And you'll carry this into your marriage, possibly, when you do get married. It may cause you problems, right? So the ideal, here I'm talking about the ideal would be that we're born from parents who really do love each other and do look forward to having children, and they're able to give us a decent quality of love and attention. And then we grow up and we have brothers and sisters and friends. And, to me, it's very interesting. First of all, we all start out completely selfish, I don't know of too many babies. Tell me if you've met a baby who says, Mom, you look really tired. You've been up all night, and I'm not going to cry right now because I don't want you to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Are there babies who do that? Have you met a baby that does? No, they're completely selfish, okay? They're cute, but they're selfish, all right? All right? And then, they get a little bit older, and it's very interesting to me. You look at relationships at that young age, it's totally conditional. I'll share my French fry with you if you do X, Y, Z for me. Isn't that true? Yeah, they've got a very strong sense of justice. There's not that much unconditional love going on. It's very conditional. And then they become a little bit older and become a teenager, and they start to notice the opposite sex and feel attracted, and they may even have a few crushes and feel like they've fallen in love with somebody, have that kind of emotion for somebody. Now, if their parents are guiding them correctly, the parents can guide them and say, look, even though you're attracted to somebody or you have a crush on somebody, it doesn't mean that you should be sexually intimate, right? So if the parents are clear, then they will have the chance to develop a more lasting kind of love. Someday, make a marital promise to somebody, and then when they do become parents, they have like mature love to give to their own children. This is a mature cycle here, right? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about that second stage of infatuation, because I think most of us know that just because you're attracted to somebody it's not a good enough reason to be intimate with that person. Most people know that, right? But I think this second stage is actually more challenging for people because, and you think about it, in the natural world, the animals, how long does it take in the animal world to raise the offspring? Maybe a few weeks or a few months, right? What if human beings did that? After a few weeks, you say, you look pretty healthy to me. Okay, you're on your own. That would not be good, right? And how long does it take to raise a child to maturity? Okay, about, I used to think 18 years old. It's not 18. It's actually longer. 25? Okay. Yeah. So, okay, in the human world, it takes about 2 decades, roughly, let's say, to raise, in many cases, to raise a child to maturity, right? And so then if it's just the woman who is raising the child, then she actually has to fulfill not just the role of being a nurturing mother, and she has to play the role of like the more fatherly role, supporting the family and doing a lot of those things too, then there's a good chance that the children will suffer. Actually, if you look at many cultures, there's even research about children who are living with a stepfather who's not their own real biological father. They actually don't do that well on average. because there's not that connection. You know, of course, there are many wonderful stepfathers, and that's not a blanket statement, but you know, often it's more difficult, right? So in the human world, nature needs the couple to stay together for at least 2 decades, right? So it's not just, attraction is just about bringing 2 people together in order to have basically intercourse and creating the possibility of a child being born. But for a human being to raise that child to maturity, the ideal is the father and mother together, right? So it cannot just be a physical attraction. That's why it has to be an emotional connection, okay? So there's actually a reason why, even from a view of survival, I'm not talking in a religious sense, I'm just talking about the survival and prospering of the human species and human family, right? So there's an emotional connection. So, of course, no one's really thinking about this. You just see somebody, or you're around somebody, and you start to like them, and you start to feel, you have an emotion of love for that person, right? And that's a wonderful feeling, right? Do you remember the first person that you had a crush on? Do you remember that? Do you remember even you just sort of touched each other's pinky and you felt electricity? Who knows about the electricity, the pinky electricity? Okay, good. All right. It's a wonderful thing, right? You just feel very happy. You know, you don't feel like you need to eat or sleep. You're thinking about this person all the time. You're kind of thinking about them. You're not paying attention in your studies. You know, you don't remember what the teacher said. You're just thinking about this person all the time. It's great. It's wonderful. But of course, what if I told you that when you're in this stage of infatuation, you're on drugs. You're on drugs because your own brain is secreting phenylethylamine. It's a natural amphetamine. What is amphetamine? It's speed. If you sold this on the street, you know, you can get arrested for selling amphetamines. You know that, right? Maybe they should arrest people. It'd be lock them up. But you know, your own brain is secreting phenylethylamine, also norepinephrine and dopamine. These create a lot of sexual energy and excitement. It's a wonderful thing. It's like a love cocktail. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But what happens if you take a certain drug for a long time? Like or you know, legal or illegal drug. What happens if you keep on taking that drug? You may become addicted, yeah, but also you become habituated, or you develop tolerance, and the effect starts to wear off. See, that's the problem with this kind of love. It is not a permanent type of love, because after a few weeks or a few months, you know, you get used to this person. It's not as exciting as it was in the very beginning. And you think, oh, what happened? I used to be so excited to see this person, and now, you know, things are more kind of like average in a way. And, you know, and some couples, they just break up. And if this is your definition of love, if you expect to have this sort of fireworks and excitement all the time, then you will be a serial dater in a way. You know, you'll meet someone, you'll be excited about them, and then after a few weeks or a few months, or actually 2 years, you know, usually there's a 2-year limit to this type of emotion, then you'll probably just break up. And you'll think, oh wow, I fell in love with this person, but now I fell out. You know, but if that's what you think love is, then you'll never be able to make a bond with one person. You'll never be able to make that work. And if you do get married, you should really not be making major life decisions when you're in this kind of emotional high, because this is not a permanent. This changes. You become and if you make a major decision to be sexually intimate or to get married or, so on, then when you come out of this emotional high and you start to see the person as they really are, actually, and you enter a conflict phase. Before they were perfect, before they were Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect, you only saw the good points, and if they did have questionable points, you always had a way to reframe it, and you reframe it, and you whatever their issue is or their personality characteristic that might be a problem for most people, you reframe it in your mind to make it very positive, right? So this type of love, it's actually, nature. Anybody do a summer barbecue? Anybody do barbecues? You like to do barbecues? Okay, me too. Okay, I'll tell you how I do it. Every summer, my wife does a lot of cooking. She's very talented. She's a great cook. But this is my chance to show what I can do. So I'm very serious. I want to do it well. So I get like a few bags of charcoal briquettes. I dump out the bag into the fire, the grill, and then I get like 5 cans of lighter fluid. And so I dump out 1 can. I douse the charcoal briquettes until they're soaking wet with lighter fluid. And then I get about 10 feet away, and I light the match, and I throw it. I throw it into the charcoal briquettes, and there's a huge explosion, and the fire is like 5 feet high, and I think, oh, this is going to be a great barbecue. We're going to cook, 50 hamburgers, 100 hot dogs, and all this other stuff, and it's going to be such a great celebration we're going to have. But about 20 or 30 seconds later, what has happened to this huge bonfire? It's gone. It's gone. And just like the edges of the charcoal briquettes are maybe gray, a little bit gray or white, because it didn't catch. The fire did not catch yet. There's a little bit of oxidation on the edges. It still is not burning. That's what this love is like. Nature wants us to meet, mate, and procreate. Okay, so it's giving us a shove in that direction. But this kind of love does not last. So, and then let me talk about the dopamine for a second. Are you enrolled at dopamine high? Okay, because dopamine is a brain chemical that gives you a reward for doing new behaviors. So if you drive your mom or dad's car at 150 miles an hour and you survive, you might get a rush of dopamine, okay? Because you're doing something new and exciting and maybe dangerous, right? Or it could be a good thing. You could say, I would like to learn how to play the guitar. And you start to play, and then you do your first chord, and you feel like really good. That's dopamine. Your brain is giving a reward for trying something new. So it can be positive or negative. Dopamine doesn't know if it's good or bad for you, okay? Now, unfortunately, some young guys, they get to be a teenager, and they of course, they're noticing girls, and they're bragging, they hear guys bragging to each other, and they're saying, I saw you hanging out with that girl, and you're spending time with her, and you went out together with her. What did you do with her? Guys will kind of challenge each other, and there's like social pressure to have sex from to each other. And so some guys, they just go ahead and do this, and it has nothing to do with this particular young woman. Nothing to do with who she is. It has a lot to do with like conquering her and getting her to do something and bragging to the friends. This is dopamine sex is what I'm talking about. So now the trouble is So guys, they kind of like brag at each other, and they pressure each other, and what are they doing? They're learning to treat girls as objects to conquer, okay? And then do you think 10 years later, when they actually realize that they actually would like to be married to somebody and have a family, don't you think that they've trained their brain, they train themselves to treat women in this way? It's not that easy to change, actually. This can, it can affect their ability to bond with their wife because they've been treating women as objects. Do you see that? Yeah. So what is the downside of Cloud 9.5? Cloud 9 was really high, right? But Cloud 9.5 is a little bit darker. So what is the dark side of this type of like emotional love or crush? What is the downside? Well, it can be very temporary. It can be very demanding. Be very jealous. I saw you look. You're talking to that guy. What were you talking about? I need to get my homework assignment. Like very possessive, right? It can be very needy and desperate and controlling. It's like very immature, and it can be in that way. So you really don't know this other person. A lot of this is about projection, your fantasy. You have an image of, this person may be very popular in the school, or, do you know what I mean? He's like captain of the football team or something, like that, projection. So, okay, and then, so what is the meaning of the act of love? Does it mean anything? Well, there's a hormone in the woman called oxytocin. Women have oxytocin when they give birth, when they're breastfeeding, and when they're having sexual intercourse. Okay? And it's a hormone that creates a feeling of attachment, of like affection or love, right? And there's a similar hormone in the man called vasopressin, which has a similar effect. Okay? So again, when you bond physically with somebody, then these hormones are creating a feeling of attachment, okay? So what happens if you bond with somebody by being sexually intimate with them, and then you have a feeling of love and you have a shared future together, and what if they just leave you? What happens? You bonded with them and they just leave you, and then it's like you gave part of your heart to that person, and they just leave you, and it's like ripping out part of your heart, right? And your ability to trust is kind of damaged, right? So uncommitted sex creates, it kind of destroys our ability to trust and to love other people, right? So and like I said before, if you do wait for the person that you're committed to, then you're not having this, right? No. So I was talking also before about how the guy may just be using a girl, right? But it's not only the guys, because some girls, I think in the very beginning, the guy, and especially the girl, they have this sort of idealism about what sexual intimacy means. But if they get hurt or used by a few people, then there's like an awakening. And in the case of the girl, her eyes are opened. Her eyes are opened, and then she gains knowledge. What kind of knowledge does she gain? She realizes, I used to think that having sex meant something, but now I know that means nothing. Now I know that people just use each other. Okay, that's the knowledge that she gets. And then instead of getting played by guys, she becomes the player. She becomes the playerette. And girls can play the same game just as well as guys. And so now it's not just what other people are doing to damage her heart. She's actually damaging her own heart, her own ability to love herself. She's doing it to herself, right? So actually, I would argue that when romance kind of declines, real love can begin. And people need to really think about this. Because when you're having this romantic high, everything looks beautiful, your partner can do no wrong, but it's not realistic, actually. If you're just in a romantic high all the time, if you did have children, they would die from starvation, right? You wouldn't be able to take care of your family. You wouldn't be able to make rational decisions, right? So actually, romance has to ebb, and then you're faced with the challenge of loving another human being with all the faults that every human being has, right? And so there's a counselor who does pre-marriage counseling. He says, if they're still in the romance stage and haven't had an argument yet, I tell them to come back in a year. He's not willing to counsel them. He says, you're not ready to get married because you haven't had a real argument with each other, and you need to go through that, because the problem is not that the argument, the problem is how you deal with the disagreement, right? You know, we're not clones of each other. It may seem like you're kind of telepathically connected in this romance stage, but that's just a kind of illusion. So who's having the best sex in America? We ask the young people. We have them vote. Swinging, good-looking swinging singles. People just live together. Married people are not faithful, or married people are absolutely faithful. And they usually choose the last choice. But actually, what I tell them is, yeah, that's what you believe. But actually, scientific research has found that is true. Married people who are absolutely faithful to each other enjoy sex the most. Married people have more sex than unmarried singles, and they enjoy it much more. So 9 out of 10 married couples, they're very satisfied with their sex lives. Individuals who had more than one sex partner in the last year were the least emotionally satisfied in this. It's a nationwide scientific survey. Married women are more likely to report that sex makes them feel loved, wanted, and taken care of. They're less likely to report that sex made them feel anxious, scared, or guilty. And you can understand why, right? Sex has a social meaning. The context in which you're being sexually intimate is very important. Okay? It's not just about, arousal or something. I actually hear adults say that I've heard, some teachers say, oh, this new generation of young people, they know a lot more about sex than their parents. And I listen to that kind of statement, and I think, you're an idiot. I don't say that, but I think you're an idiot. Because they may know about having uncommitted sex. They may know about sexual acts. It doesn't mean they know about what the meaning of sex and love are. So for you as an adult, I think many adults, we've allowed our sex education to be written by lawyers, okay? We teach the least controversial, least honest, the most basic factual information, and we're not willing to teach anything about the meaning of love. which is actually what young people are most interested in. In our relationship intelligence program, we've taught like 120,000 young people in the inner city neighborhoods of New Jersey and New York. And I can tell you that young people are very interested in this discussion. They know about condoms. They know about, they've seen a lot, right? It's easy to see a lot on the cable television or the internet. But they are interested in lasting love relationships. And if you as an adult feel like you can't talk about that, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with us as parents and as educators, and I would even say religious leaders. If we cannot talk to young people about the meaning of this, of lasting love relationships and marriage, we really need to kind of do a self-evaluation, don't you think? Married people are less likely to get colds, cancer, arthritis, or heart attacks. Married women have stronger immune systems than unmarried women. Married men and women live longer. There are a lot of benefits. And we could talk about why this is true. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what the culture is teaching our young people. And I think part of the problem is we as adults, we don't always know what our young people are being taught in the schools and also what they're listening to, the music. I like jazz. And in New York City, there's a jazz channel called 91.9. That's the frequency, and it's a jazz station. It's great jazz. John Coltrane and some other one. So I was driving in Pennsylvania, and I said, I'd like to listen to some jazz. And I turned to 91.9, and in Pennsylvania, 91.9 is not a jazz station. Okay. So I'm hearing this kind of like rap music, and this guy is saying, take off your clothes. And the whole song, he says about like 100 times, take off your clothes. So I'm listening to this, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is like, he's like brainwashing some girl somewhere. He's saying it like 100 times in this one song. And I thought, oh my God, this is a station that I don't listen to, and I don't want to, but this is something that our young people, they're listening to this stuff. Okay? So what, I had to cover this gangster rap, it says Iceberg. Anyway, this is a cover. It shows two naked people, a man and woman together. I had to cover it up a little bit. Okay, here we see, the spring weekend, and the college students just said, now the time is to have a lot of fun. The way to have a lot of fun is to get drunk and do all kinds of things with people that you don't remember doing, and that's what fun is, right? And the idea is, as long as it's consensual and it's, quote, safe, then everything's fine. And actually, there was an interview with a girl who engaged in hookups. Do you know what the definition of hooking up is? It means being sexually intimate with somebody with no emotional commitment. And the whole idea is that emotional commitments can hurt. It can hurt to break up or have expectations. So the solution is we're just going to do something without the definition of what we're doing is that there will be no emotional commitment. That's what hooking up essentially is. And the girl says it's equal. Everyone is using each other. That's fair. Yeah. It's like the kids, saying, I'll share my French fry with you if you do X, Y, or Z. It's such an immature, pathetic type of, and because the adults we're not willing to really speak clearly about and guide the young people, we're kind of letting them, they're like orphans. We're just letting them be raised by WXYZ, satanic radio station, whose only interest is money. Only interest that they have is money. That's the only thing they care about. So we have inheritance of insecure, false, selfish love. So in this case, parents copulate. The woman gets pregnant. If the woman decides not to abort the child or destroy the child and the child gets born, then the child is growing up in a family. I mean, the mother loves, I just want to say something. I'm not trying to put down single parents or single mothers, because they work harder than anybody else, okay? They need love, friendship, and support. But there's one thing that a single mother cannot do. She can be a great person, a great, guide her children, and growing up in a single-parent family is not a death sentence. Many outstanding people have come from single-mother families. Ben Carson, he became a neurosurgeon. He was raised by his single mother. She couldn't even read. She made him write a report about his homework every day, and he gave it to her. He didn't know that she couldn't read his report. But he became a neurosurgeon. So my hat is off to her, okay? But there's one thing that a single mother cannot show her son or daughter, and that is what a responsible man looks like. No matter how good a parent she is, she can't show that, right? And so children, they grow up, and then they have friendships and relationships, and then they start to be attracted and maybe have a crush on somebody. Now, if there's no father in the home, the research does show that if the father, do you know that if the biological father is not in the home, girls start menstruating at a younger age? Did you know that? I mean, there's all kinds of biology going on here, okay? So having your biological father in your home delays sexual maturing in girls, just by having the biological father in the home, okay? But if the father's not there, she becomes sexually mature earlier, and she's looking for love. She's not received that masculine love. She's likely to look for it with young men who are not mature themselves, do not know what it really means to love themselves, and likely to engage in sexual intimacy and become immature parents and give birth to children, but they're still kids. It's kids raising kids, right? Can you see how there are two cycles? There's a mature cycle, and then there's an immature cycle. It's like short-circuiting, right? And to me, these are not bad people. These are people who are being victimized by a culture that doesn't educate them, does not protect them. We're like throwing our young people to the wolves and say, okay, here, you look like you can defend yourself, and just go out and survive in this sexual marketplace. It's like a Darwinian world. It's not right. It's not right. So, yeah, they call it free sex, they call it safe sex, they call it being fair, where everyone just uses each other, but I call it bad sex. And when I say the term bad sex, I don't mean just from a moral perspective. I'm not judging it as being, immoral. I'm saying it's not enjoyable, it's bad. It's bad sex. It's unfulfilling sex. It's like going to a restaurant where it looks like it's good food, but there's some microbes and germs. It's not clean food, and you get sick and you vomit after you leave the restaurant. That's what I'm saying. It's bad sex. Do you understand? Okay. It's not fulfilling. You don't feel good about yourself. After you might have felt good while you're engaged. You might feel a little bit of love, a little bit of someone caring about you, but afterwards you feel empty because this person is not committed to you. Maybe he's not even capable of making a commitment because they themselves are immature, right? And unfortunately, it's not just the popular media that's pushing this type of bad sex. We actually have organizations at the national level in our country and even at the United Nations who are pushing bad sex, actually. They call it sexual rights education. And they want, in addition to them wanting young people to know the facts of reproduction, which I agree with, they need to know that, they're actually pushing the view that young people have an absolute right to be sexually active at a young age, which is not a very good idea. So there's the International Planned Parenthood Federation here, A Young Person's Guide to Their Rights, Sexuality and Living with HIV. They're actually saying that even if you're HIV infected, as a young person, you still have a right to be sexually active, have sex. You should use a condom, but you don't need to tell the person that you're infected. These are radical, these people, I don't know if you know this, but the State Department, U.S. State Department, our government has been threatening other countries at the United Nations, saying if they do not support this kind of education, then we will cut off all funding from their country. I'm talking about mostly African countries or Caribbean countries. These are less wealthy countries. American foreign aid is a big help to those countries, and they're being threatened. If they don't go along with this type of education, they've been threatened, we'll cut off funding from you. Now, these young people who've been taught that it's okay to have uncommitted sex, as long as you use a condom, basically, as long as it's consensual, but are they getting what they really want? Okay, here's a young woman who was on the Dr. Phil show, and it was devoted to the idea of oral sex. Some young people think, well, I'm not going to have intercourse, but it's okay to have oral sex because I won't get pregnant, and I'm less likely to get a disease. Actually, you can get sexually transmitted diseases from oral sex. Actually, I just want to mention that. But she said, a 16-year-old girl says, her voice quavering, I was joining my body with someone I didn't know or care about. If I see a man's blank, I get really scared just because I've had bad experiences, like I get freaked out. And then there's another girl, 14-year-old girl, who's been engaged in this. If there's a guy at school walking down the hallway, if he's with a bunch of his friends, he'll be like, oh, look at this hoe. Do you want to blank? Okay? This is a world that we've allowed our young people to exist in, and many parents do not have a clue about what our young people are experiencing in school, and they don't know what these young people are being taught. Okay? What about college students? You expect college students are more mature. They should be more able to really know what their self-interest truly should be. But Here's a student at George Washington University. It's a great school in Washington, D.C. She'd had a series of sexual encounters. She depended on alcohol to get ready for boys, and when things did not work out, to take the edge off her disappointment. Her grades were falling, putting her at risk of losing her scholarship. She'd had several sessions with a psychiatrist who prescribed an antidepressant that made her groggy. Think about this. This girl is suffering because she's hooking up with guys. She has to get drunk before she goes out, and she has to drink alcohol after she comes back to forget what she did, okay? And she goes to the counselor at the university, who's been indoctrinated not to get at the real issue, not to tell her, maybe you shouldn't be having uncommitted sex, which is something that is considered not politically correct. And instead, they give her antidepressants to make her drugged up all the time. This is a perfect example of the way our country is abusing our young people. 4 in 10 sexually active girls are infected with an STD. Condoms partially reduce the risk for some of these diseases, but not all. What about child poverty? There are 3 main risk factors for child poverty: out-of-wedlock birth, a teen mother, the first child was born when the girl was a teenager, and a mother who did not finish high school. 80% of children with all 3 of these risk factors are living in poverty in America. In contrast, less than 1 in 10 of young people with none of these risk factors live in poverty. You want to reduce poverty in America? Don't give birth outside of marriage. Wait until you're no longer a teenager to give birth, and get married before giving birth to children, and finish high school. If you follow these 3 things, you greatly reduce your chance of living in poverty in America. People come from all over the world because they know that America is a land of opportunity. This is, in many countries, if you don't belong to the right families, if you don't have the right connections, it's very hard for you to change your socioeconomic status. But in America, it is still a land of opportunity. Now, I want to talk about ABC education versus sexual rights education. Okay, ABC means A stands for abstinence, B is for be faithful if you are intimate with somebody, and small c means if you're too dumb to do A or B, at least use a condom. Okay? Now, this was an educational approach developed in Uganda. Uganda, in the 1980s, there were a lot of civil war going on, and there's a lot of AIDS. 15% of their national population, of the adult population, was infected with the AIDS virus. And there's a rebel leader named Museveni who came to power, and America and the Western nations didn't trust him because he was a rebel leader. Said, we're not going to help you. So, which actually was a good thing, actually. So he realized, and he told his whole nation, if we don't deal with this problem of AIDS, our country is going to be destroyed. So he and his wife went all over the country talking in churches and telling all their government leaders, even the director of the Department of Agriculture or Commerce or the Health, or it doesn't matter what department, the Minister of Defense. He said, your first job, besides your other work, is to teach ABC. everywhere you go. He got everyone involved, all the leaders of the country, political leaders, business leaders, everybody. We're going to start talking about that. This is no longer a taboo. If we keep our mouths shut, our country is doomed, okay? And so what happened? Well, okay, in 1990, 15% of their adult population was infected. By applying this ABC model, they cut that to less than half by 2006. And they kept it, and it still is half of what it should be lower, but they did cut it in half. Okay, let's contrast that with Botswana. You know, Botswana is a small country that's within South Africa. It's actually a very wealthy part of Africa, okay? So in 1990, they only had 3% of their, 3% is a lot, but it's not 15%, right? So 3% of their adult population was infected with the HIV virus. Well, in their case, they had Western experts, so-called experts, come in. And what did the Western experts say from America and Europe? What did they say? They said, well, all you need to do is teach the young people, how to have safe sex. That was basically the main message was, it's okay to have sex, it doesn't matter who you're having sex with or how many people you have sex with, but just use a condom. What happened? By 2006, it had increased sevenfold to 22% of their national population, and a year ago, it was still 22%. Okay. Let me just be fair. I mean, America, we give a lot of money for medical treatments, the antiretroviral treatment or drugs, which have helped people to not die from AIDS, okay? So we do a lot of good in terms of medical technology, I would say. But the good that we do with one hand, we completely undo with our other hand when we teach this one-dimensional, dishonest, and very mechanistic approach to sexual intimacy. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's something wrong with our country. Our countries, I love my country. I think there are a lot of good people in this country, but people who are in charge of these major institutions, they do not teach what most parents and what most people in America believe. Okay, I've got 10 hours of research, but I have to finish up. Men who marry as virgins are 37% less likely to get divorced. A study conducted in 4 countries, the earlier the young men initiate premarital sex, the more partners they had, the more likely they were to be unfaithful in marriage. Women who marry as virgins are 24% less likely to get divorced. There was a huge study of 6,500 women. They found that premarital sex with just one partner other than their husband raised the risk of divorce by 3 times. What we do before marriage affects what happens in marriage. You cannot separate what we do as a young person and what happens as an adult. Living together is not a good preparation for getting married, contrary to popular belief. People who just live together, who do get married, have less happy marriages and a higher risk of divorce. They have higher rates of alcohol and drug use and higher rates of depression. So it's not a good way. Married couples are less victimized by domestic violence. Women living together with a boyfriend are 60 times more likely to be assaulted by him than are women who live with their husbands, according to the U.S. Justice Department. Couples living together report less romance and more conflict than married couples. Then there's pornography. You know, this guy said, who needs the hassle of dating when I've got online porn? Don't you think he has a problem? Do you think there's a good chance he'll have difficulty to form a loving, committed relationship with somebody? Yes. Okay. People can become addicted to pornography. I already spoke about Dr. Weiss. We should warn our young people, especially young men, boys. The average age of using pornography, I think, is 11 years old. We have to warn our young men. This is very damaging to your future. So we have to warn them not to do it. Okay. Religious involvement helps marriages. Couples who actively practice their faith are more than twice as likely to stay married. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I think I have to wrap up here. I have a lot more material, but I think we have to stop. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Dr. Panzer, one more hand. Thank you. Thank you so much. More than 30 years of research and in-depth study, speaking to thousands of young people, professionals. Really, God guided him in this passion, and we're so grateful in American Clergy and Leader Alliance that he's agreed to partner with us and work with us to bring true love ethics back into our communities and begin to curb so many plagues that we have in our country today in America. And America can really serve the world, but America's sick. So when you're sick, you know have health challenges. When you're really sick, what do? Do you go out and go help people? You got to get healthy first. Then you can go out and help people. We can also see how much we helped. Fortunately, Uganda didn't ask for our help. But so anyway, this ends our convocation today. I'm so glad for you to come. I'm so grateful for everyone who's joined us from around the country, around the world. I just want to conclude. Those of you who would like to join the American Clergy and Leadership Alliance, you can join in whatever letter fits you. If you just like to be a supporter, just connect with us and support. It's fine. You can offer any kind of contribution you like, or no contribution. Let's work together and make a better country. If you'd like to become a member, we have 4 levels at $12, at $25, $50, and $100. We've just rushed to get everything together. We haven't really defined it, but if you decide to join as a $100 initial member, then we actually have wonderful materials that we'll be sending you. I just want to show you. One is this wonderful book. I'll have to get Dr. Panzer to sign some, but this is called The War on Intimacy. It's a wonderful book. A lot of the research that Dr. Panzer spoke about is in the book, and a lot of really true, deep stories. We have a wonderful video called The Real Deal. You saw a little bit with Yvonne Harvey.
The Real Deal on love, relationships, and marriage.
Some information on relationship intelligence, brochures, and free teens material, and we'll provide that for you. Also, if you're a member, you can get 10% off any of the materials that we'll make available as a member. So at any level membership, $12 or $25 or $50. And then there's also going to be seminars that we'll be giving training. There's whole in-depth training, RQ, Relationship Intelligence, where we may have seminars, and we'll be providing training and support. The founders felt we really want to be practical and substantial, and there'll be many things we want to do to bring God's practical love into our communities. And some of you who had a wonderful tour of Pastor Fermin's church, it's wonderful. We'll be showing some of the pictures on our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube, the same channel you're watching the video today. We'll be publishing more and more information there. We have also a Facebook site, which is Facebook, just our name, American Clergy and Leaders Alliance, Facebook. So you can look us up there, comment, let us know what your feeling was about today's program, or what you'd like us to do, or how we can support you to be a great leader to bring absolute true love ethics. Bring true love ethics into your community. Let's revive our communities. Let's revive our families and our communities. And it can begin at any age. And it doesn't matter where you start, because we serve a marvelous God, a forgiving God, a graceful God. So it doesn't matter if you've gone a course that you're not happy about. And, of course, the core of what we do is really Christ-centered, but you're not required to become a Christian to work with us. You come to know your relationship with God as you become to know it. Don't feel, if you're not a Christian today, that this is only a Christian organization. No, this is American Clergy and Leaders Alliance. We work together because Christ's love goes everywhere, as Pastor Mean shared, our unity. And if you're not even, so whatever your background, let's work together. Let's really move our country. And as we said earlier, it's amazing what's happening today in America. If you're from around the world, you're wondering, what's happening in America? All they're talking about is sex and wacky relationships. It's interesting, the very core of our presidential debate right now is about good and bad sex. Well, you say, well, that's bad sex. Speaking on women this way is bad. Yes, that's bad sex. Okay, the action is worse than the words? Yeah, the action is worse than the words. But let's go towards good, and let's make a good and great country. So thank you very much for joining, and we'd like to ask some of you to just share for a few minutes your thoughts on coming, your inspiration, and our cameraman here will just... you can just stand in front and share a few words, and that'll be nice. Thank you very much, and we'd like to end with a prayer. So I think we'd ask that Pastor Fermin, could you come and offer a prayer as our hosting pastor? Thank you very much, everyone.
Actually, those that didn't see the distribution, how it's going on, right now you see a lot of cars in the back. There's a lot of people taking boxes and boxes of food. So for those that has not seen that, you can go now and actually see it. One interesting thing, we were helping 60% of the people who help are Americans, Anglos, and African Americans, and 10% are veterans. And one of the veterans that was receiving help from us, now he is one of the volunteers that is distributing the food with his wife and children and all his family. And we have other people that are not veterans, but also people are being asking for food. Now they are the ones that are helping me to pick up, and they are downstairs. Everyone downstairs, you go there, they all are people that came at one time for help, and now they are helping others. So I welcome you after the meeting that you might want to go downstairs and see it, how the system is working. But to God be the glory. Thank you very much, Dr. Pence. I'm glad that you didn't finish all your material, because that's a good reason why you need to come back again. Yeah. You need to finish. I am very touched with your presentation, and I'm very honored to have you, all of you. I'm sad that we didn't have all these seats filled, but this is our first meeting, okay? Next time I think we can fill up. So this is enough, and let's give thanks to God for all this, okay? To Him be the glory, to Him be the honor. Let's stand up. Heavenly Father, thank you once more to be here with us. Thank you for guiding us and lead us to this point, to teach us and open our minds and our hearts as what is important and which areas we should concentrate to better our homes, to better our families, to better our community, and to better our country. As you know, our country is in a terrible shape. The country is divided, but so is your body, in more than 40,000 pieces. And make this ACLA a prophetic voice that we can bring hope to our families, that we can bring hope to our communities, that we can bring hope to our country. It's not late yet, but at least you give us a starting point. And it's starting with our families, at home, in the school, at work, and everywhere where we are. Make us a light. Make us something that people can look at us and says, I want to be with them. I want to be like them. We don't want people says, oh, I don't want to be like them. But make us a light and shine through us to those that we get in touch. May you help us to reach the needy and to those that fail, that we can go with an open arm and lift them up rather than going with pointing fingers. Let us go to those that fail and not run from them. Help us to be your hands. Help us to be your feet. Help us to see the world through your own eyes and feel through your own heart. Make us less critical, but more empathetic for your honor and your glory. Amen. May God go with you, especially those that travel far away. Thank you for being here with us.
I'm Bruce Hutcherson, and I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.